The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said.
Hello everyone, No One of Consequence here, back again with a new video. This is episode 56 in a series which recounts my ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which is now in its 10th year. So as always, spoiler alert, in this video I will be revealing details found in this adventure module. And as a reminder, this is the current composition of the adventuring party, and as pointed out here, two of the characters, Aramis and Thorol, are currently missing, as is Varys's guard dog, Spuds Mackenzie. However, joining the group is, as was introduced in the last video, Mr. J, who is a figment or a hallucination of Varys, but in reality, he's functioning as a stand-in for the player who owns the characters Aramis and Thorol. So, where we left off last time, the characters had just rescued the Titan from the prison cell where he was being held captive by the fire giants. And so the characters took him to the fire giant's blacksmith workshop so that he could arm himself and help the characters, which was great because currently two of the player characters are missing. So the characters set out again. As mentioned before, the Titan said he was eager to fight fire giants and get his revenge. So the characters decided to lead him to a section of this second level that they had not yet explored. And also the party finally took up Niob's offer to cast Locate Object, thinking that it might help them to discover the location of Aramis and Thorol. And, of course, as I mentioned in the last video, the spell doesn't work on living creatures. So Niobe chose as her target for the spell the Frostbrand sword that Aramis was carrying, which actually belongs to Gorbadoc. He acquired it in the Frost Giant adventure, but it had been on long-term loan to Aramis, and Gorbadoc insisted on getting his sword back, so that was what they decided to use for Niobe's Locate Object spell. So again, they went to an area that they had not yet explored. The party found what was obviously another fire giant barracks room, but it was deserted. And the Titan expressed his disappointment at finding the place empty and not having any fire giants to fight. However, a bit of good news is that Niobe's Locate Object spell indicated to her that Aramis's Frostbrand sword was within range of her spell, and it was located somewhere off to the west of their current location. Unfortunately, there was no door in this room leading directly in that location, and they searched around and could not even find a secret door. So they circled back around and ended up in the hallway where the purple tentacle door is located. You can see it there on the bottom edge of the screenshot. And searching around on the northern wall of this hallway, they discovered two large sets of double doors, which were not previously visible because they were concealed by an illusion spell, but just working their way along the wall and searching, the illusion was dispelled. And so the two sets of double doors were revealed, as pointed out here. And this is a zoomed out screenshot from last time, showing that central location on the second level, and again pointing out where those two sets of double doors are located. So the characters decided to open the westernmost set of double doors first. You'll recall previously, because these doors were so large and heavy, it required quite a bit of team effort from the characters to get any doors open. However, with the Titan here, that was no longer a problem. The Titan was able to just, pull on the handles and open up the doors without any issues. So the double doors led into a short, or it had a short distance, and then it led into this raised platform area with a broad set of steps leading down to a lower level. And they could tell just from their footsteps echoing that it was a very large, cavernous hall, even though most of it was shrouded in darkness. However, the stonework here where they were seemed to radiate a faint purplish glow. So, advancing down the set of steps to the lower level, the characters proceeded cautiously as their footsteps echoed in this huge room, and you can see pointed out here, large pillars on either side lining the wall of this great hall. And they stretched off into the darkness above. The room was tall enough that their light could not reach the ceiling. But more of a more immediate interest is at the far opposite end of this hall. The characters quickly realized that a sinister scene was unfolding. First of all, the characters finally had their first view of these elusive drow elves that they had heard about, and you can see the three of them pointed out here. Unfortunately, these particular drow appeared to be initiating some kind of foul ceremony over the body of Aramis, and you can see him lying there on this big altar. The drow were reciting incantations. The priestess standing over the altar was leading the ceremony, while her assistants on either side, the one on the left was beating on this drum, and the one on the right was ringing these chimes and bells that were suspended from stands. And in response, a huge evil-looking eye materialized into view upon the altar, pointed out there. And this eye looked around, and seeing the sacrifice prepared for it, which of course is Aramis, the eye put out these purple tentacles, which seized Aramis's body and began drawing him in towards the eye itself. So Obrak, who was up front already and pointed out here, broke into a charge and began running up towards the altar in hopes of saving Aramis. But this drow priestess saw him approaching out of the darkness, and in response, she took out a wand and fired it off towards Obrak. The wand produced a cone-shaped beam of a sickly green color, which washed over Obrak, and he temporarily paused as it swept over him, but being a stout and sturdy dwarf, his resistance to such things are high, and the magic passed over him with no permanent effect, and so he continued his charge towards the altar. Meanwhile, further back, Gorbadoc, who was still perched on the Titan's shoulder, urged it forward to help save Aramis, who he quickly explained was part of their group. And so, of course, the Titan, being so big, has a very long stride, and was able to quickly get up to the altar. And you can't see him because he's under the icon of the Titan shield. But Obrak had also reached the altar, and he tried hitting the eye on the altar with his magic warhammer, but it didn't seem to have any effect. And then also Garrett had taken off running, and he moves very fast, and he had activated his ring of invisibility and ran up and was quickly adjacent to that Drow priestess. So the Titan grabbed Aramis just as he was being absorbed into that eye on the altar, and he got into a contest of strength with the tentacles, but the Titan proved to be stronger, and he literally peeled the tentacles away from Aramis like a banana skin, and then just laid Aramis on the floor there in front of the altar. Now, the eye, being deprived of that sacrifice, lashed out to seize another victim, and this time it chose Garrett, as pointed out here on this screenshot. And meanwhile, the Drow priestess and her assistants, seeing everything going on, especially the Titan, they all took off running, and they fled into the darkness off to the east. As pointed out here, however, the characters did not pursue, being more interested at this time in rescuing first Aramis and now Garrett. So now Garrett was being pulled towards the eye by these tentacles, and Obrak jumped up there and was trying to help, but he really couldn't do anything to affect the eye, and the situation looked grim. And it was at this point that Niobe decided to use her necklace of prayer beads, and one of those beads allows the cleric to summon their deity, but it has to be a pretty extreme circumstance, and Niobe thought that this qualified, so she used the necklace of prayer beads to summon St. Cuthbert himself. And I required her to make a few dice rolls and consulted some tables I have, but in the end, I determined that St. Cuthbert would respond to Niobe's summons, and so literally the fabric of space and time split apart, and a vision of St. Cuthbert himself appeared in the air, hovering above the altar here. And you can see in that screenshot that illustration I used. Of course, I was inspired by this scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But back to the game, St. Cuthbert quickly communicated to Niobe that this was a manifestation of the Elder Elemental God, whom he and the other gods had believed to be banished forever. However, clearly this was not true, and St. Cuthbert actually expressed gratitude to Niobe for summoning him so that he could learn this information. And this is important because if you read the description for this magic item, if the cleric ever uses the prayer bead to summon the deity requires the cleric to sacrifice the bead itself as payment for troubling the god. But in this situation, I decided that this was such an important thing for the gods to learn that St. Cuthbert did not require Niobe to sacrifice the deity summoning bead. So the vision of St. Cuthbert after he gave Niobe that information, he sent forth a bolt of lightning, which struck the manifestation of the Elder Elemental Eye, and that caused it to release Garrett, and then it retreated back into the depths of the altar stonework from which it was summoned. And then finally, before disappearing, St. Cuthbert commanded Niobe to continue to investigate this return of the Elder Elemental God and the Drow behind it all, and to put an end to their evil plans. So now, after everything had quieted back down, the characters gave Aramis some healing, and all of his equipment was scattered around nearby, so he put his armor back on and re-equipped himself, and was ready to rejoin the party. So they had Aramis back, so the other characters asked him if he remembered or knew anything regarding the fate of Thorol. And Aramis said that he vaguely recalls hearing a female voice telling others, it said something like, "Take this other one down below. I will question him later and find out everything that he knows." So the characters could only assume that this meant Thorol had been taken by the Drow down to the next lower level of the fire giant's lair. And Varys asked about his dog, Spuds Mackenzie. Unfortunately, Aramis couldn't tell him anything, but Varys expressed the hope that perhaps Spuds had been taken down there as well and might still be alive somewhere. So just to make sure that the characters weren't missing anything, they decided to have the Titan open that second set of double doors back out in the hallway right nearby, and directly across from the tentacle wall. So the Titan opened those doors up, and Varys and Gorbadoc volunteered to go in and have a look around. They soon found themselves in a section that was separated off from that main worship hall. But as I say, it was sectioned off by a narrow row of pillars. And Gorbadoc passed between two of the pillars, but as he did so, he got a shock, and you can see his health bar there has gone down some. But the characters, these two characters didn't find anything else of interest, so Varys just turned around and went back out the way he came in, while Gorbadoc circled around and came out through that first set of double doors to avoid getting another shock. Although it was still relatively early in the day, the characters had already depleted their day's allotments of spell and healing, so they decided to return back to the first level of the fire giant lair, and they went back to King Snurry's council chamber, and decided to hole up there and rest and rememorize spells. So several hours later, the party set out again. They went back down to the level 2 and went to another previously unexplored section. And as they were moving up this darkened hallway, they were suddenly attacked by a pack of trolls rushing out of the darkness. So they engaged those in combat, and the Titan quickly proved its worth having them along, because he hit so hard that he could usually kill a troll with a single blow from his sword. However, not everything was going well for the characters. Aramis was up there fighting some of the trolls, and he was struck with 2 critical hits during the same combat round, and suddenly he was out of the fight. So seeing that happen, the Titan stopped fighting the trolls long enough to reach down and pick up Aramis, Then he just turned around and placed Aramis back on the ground behind him, which allowed Niobe to cast healing on Aramis without her having to move up and get near the trolls herself. So again, another advantage to having the Titan with them. And not long after that, it was Obrak's turn to receive a couple of nasty critical hits, as pointed out there. However, despite these setbacks, the character slowly made headway against this attacking horde of trolls, and as they advanced, other characters set fire to the troll bodies so that they could not regenerate. And soon after that, the last of the trolls were dead, and the characters went about setting their bodies on fire as well. Suddenly, from the north, a huge mob of gnolls came running out of the darkness. At first, the characters thought they were attacking, but then they quickly realized these gnolls were unarmed, dressed in rags, and they looked very thin and worn out. And they didn't attack any of the characters. All they did was just run past, and clearly they were trying to escape from this area. So the character simply stood aside and let them all pass by. Then once the mob of trolls had cleared out, the characters went north in the direction that the gnolls had come from. They found another chamber. There were a few cowering, wounded trolls hiding in there, which the characters quickly defeated and set those on fire. And they came across another big mob of gnolls that did the same thing as the first one. Once the gnolls realized the trolls were dead, they all just ran away and didn't bother the characters at all, so the characters just let them go. So after clearing out that area, the party decided to return back to the prison cell area where they had found the Titan, because they recalled that there were a few other doors there that they had not yet opened. The first door that they opened, it was not locked and barred from the outside like a prison cell. It was just a regular door, although it was fire giant sized. So the Titan opened it up. The characters up front looked inside, and they saw it was a room that was furnished with giant sized furniture. However, inside were 3 human males. They were swarthy and kind of evil looking, and sitting around a table and drinking. And when the door opened, of course, these 3 guys all turned and looked, and once they saw the characters, they started reaching for their weapons. So there was an initiative roll. The characters won initiative, so you can see Obrak, Garrett, and Aramis ran inside. And Obrak and Garrett succeeded in hitting the targets they had chosen, and when they did so, a shocking thing occurred. All 3 of these humans turned into giant black rats with glowing red eyes just right there in front of them. So a second round of initiative, the characters won again, and this time both Obrak and Garrett and Aramis killed 2 of the 3 of these giant rats, and as soon as they did so, they reverted back into their human form. However, the third rat that was further away and hadn't been attacked, seeing what had just happened, ran to the far corner of this room and slipped down through the grating of this drain set in the floor of this room. You can see that. It's kind of dark, but you can see that pointed out here on the screenshot. So Aramis ran up and poured some oil down that drain while Varys used his flame sword to set it on fire. And the characters hoped that this would kill the third rat, or at least prevent it from returning. Meanwhile, the rest of the characters searched around in this room for valuables, but they did not find anything worth taking. So the characters moved on, went back outside and moved down. At the far end of the hallway, there was another prison cell door. They opened that up, and inside there was a fire giant chained to the wall. And the Titan immediately said that he recognized this fire giant. He said this was King Snurry's lieutenant. The Titan also said that this fire giant had tormented him severely while he was captured. And so the characters asked the Titan to question this fire giant and find out why he was now being held prisoner. So the fire giant explained, and the Titan translated, that he had advised King Snurry to cease his war on humankind and to stop taking advice from the Drow elves. But King Snurry did not like that, and so for his insubordination, this fire giant was locked up down here. However, the fire giant said that if the characters would release him, that he would help them defeat King Snurry and thus have his revenge for having to suffer this humiliating treatment. The Titan told the characters that while this giant's story might be true, he did not trust the fire giant to keep his word. However, he said he would leave it up to the characters to decide whether or not to release him. So the characters discussed it, took a vote, and decided not to trust the fire giant. And that was all the Titan needed to hear, so he just stepped forward and used his sword to deliver a coup de grace to the fire giant and take care of the matter. So there was another prison cell door right nearby. The characters opened that up, and inside there was a human female shackled to the wall, pointed out here in the screenshot. And upon questioning her, she freely admitted to their characters to being a thief who had been captured while exploring the fire giant lair, hoping to find treasure. She said that unfortunately King Snurry's hellhounds had sniffed her out while she was sneaking around and she got captured. Excuse me. Initially, the characters released her from the shackles and let her come out of the cell. However, she then said that she wanted to join the party and help out, thereby earning a share of any loot that they acquired. At first, the characters refused, fearing that she might end up just stealing from them instead. Excuse me. Then Aramis unwisely mentioned that the party had loot stashed elsewhere down here, and if they rejected her offer to help them, then she might just go around and search for the stashed loot and steal it for herself. So now everyone was thoroughly paranoid, and the characters ended up forcing the female thief at sword point to go back into the prison cell, and then they literally chained her back to the wall. Before relocking the door, the characters did promise that they would come back for her after they finished defeating the fire giants. But then they also said that subsequent events might draw their attention elsewhere, so who could say for certain what her fate might be? So they relocked her up back in her prison cell, and then there was one final unexplored prison cell door. So they opened that up. Inside, the only thing they found were 2 human skeletons chained to the wall. And the characters made the joke that probably someone had promised these 2 that they would come back for them later and rescue them, but then never did. So with that, the party decided that they had fully explored everything on level 2 of the fire giant lair, so they went back to the stairs that they knew leads down to level 3, and based on the information that they had, they hoped that they would be able to find Thorol and Spuds Mackenzie down there and be able to rescue them as well. Alright, well, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. As always, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share the video if you can. And anything you can do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.
The greatest adventure is what